You want to see the really cool part? It's inside. Come on, let's go!
What exactly makes the animated version of The Jungle Book and its live-action counterpart so different and unique? Some things have stayed the same, like the names of the characters and the core story values. But these two films have enough distinctions that you may not even call the live-action version a remake at all. From varying creative visions from two totally different directors, to the magic of CGI, to a completely new cast, we'll look at all the changes that were made between these two films.
Don't you realize that you're a human?
Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book was brought to life by Disney first in 1967, much to the delight of audiences everywhere. We all remember the colorful and lighthearted animated film with catchy songs like The Bare Necessities. So when the 2016 live action came out, we were shocked to see it have a much darker tone and different interpretations of the characters, among other things. First, let's look at the creative variations between Wolfgang Reitherman, who directed the animated 1967 version, and Jon Favreau, who directed the live-action one. The biggest difference is due to the original source material itself. Favreau and the screenwriter for the 2016 version of The Jungle Book pulled heavily from Rudyard Kipling's work, which has pretty dark content, and let the original poetic words influence the dialogue and action. This is a massive change from the original because Reitherman and his team weren't even allowed to read the book, let alone get inspiration from it. If that wasn't big enough of an alteration, check out the budget these two films had. The original animated film worked with a $4 million budget, while Favreau had $175 million to work with. That's one big step up from the original. Of course, a budget discrepancy is to be expected. While the animation team worked long hours to bring the 1967 version to life, the live action required a much bigger budget to pull off the impressive CGI we see in the movie. Instead of drawing out the scenes as they did in the animated feature, Favreau utilized techniques like green screen and computer animation to realize his film. This leads to another huge contrast between each film, and that's what we see on screen.
I'll go back to the pack. I'll go back to Aquila.
One change you might have noticed between the two films is Mowgli himself. In the animated version, Mowgli can be described as happy-go-lucky and silly. He's not any different from any other 10-year-old boy you might meet, and he was raised by wolves. Throughout the film, he consistently finds something to laugh about, even when he gets into trouble. He's a naive boy, or man-cub, as they say in the film, and truly doesn't know any better. That aspect isn't lost on the 2016 version of Mowgli, but Neel Sethi's acting and Jon Favreau's vision brings a newfound seriousness to the character that the 1967 version lacks. Mowgli has a deep connection to the jungle and serious respect for nature. Also, unlike his animated counterpart, he is very much aware of the dangers that the jungle holds. While the animated version presents the jungle as a paradise, the live-action version reminds us that the jungle is a scary, although beautiful place. There's also selflessness to his character that the 1967 Mowgli doesn't have.
Someone's gotta do something!
When Shere Khan becomes a threat, Mowgli bravely volunteers to leave the wolf pack and save them from facing the angry tiger. In the animation, Mowgli complains the entire time and whines to be brought back to his home. He lacks the emotional depth that the 2016 version has. One thing they do have in common is that neither one of them wants to leave the jungle. However, leaving the jungle seems to be what's safest for Mowgli in both versions, and that's thanks to Shere Khan. The villainous tiger plays a much bigger role in the live action, which is quite the change from the original.
He'll get Mowgli while he's young and helpless.
In the animation, we only hear about Shere Khan. We don't actually see him until over halfway through the film. All we know about him is what we're told by other characters. We learn from Bagheera that Shere Khan dislikes humans and their technology, but that's about as far as his discontentment goes. The 2016 Shere Khan is hungry for revenge, bearing a scar from Mowgli's father, something the animated version lacks. From the beginning of the film to the very end, he proves to be a vengeful beast that will not stop until he's accomplished his goal of getting rid of Mowgli once and for all. The live action brings the drama and the darkness, and that's in part due to Shere Khan's terrifying nature and actions. Opposite of Shere Khan is Bagheera, the panther. In both versions, Bagheera is a watchful eye over Mowgli. There's wisdom to both characters, but the audience can tell early on that the 2016 version is much more invested in Mowgli, serving as his mentor.
I know he's special. I raised him.
We see it in the very beginning when Bagheera lectures Mowgli about being less like a man and more like a wolf. In the 1967 version, Bagheera states that he checks in on the man-cub every now and again and sometimes walks with him. The 2016 Bagheera has a deep emotional connection to Mowgli, and the audience can feel it. And of course, who can forget characters like Baloo and Kaa? Phil Harris's rendition of the character in 1967 is iconic. Who doesn't love to sing along to the bare necessities? He's carefree and relaxed, but he comes to care for Mowgli immediately. Bill Murray's Baloo, on the other hand, is more so lazy and uses Mowgli to get honey. But where Harris's Baloo wanted to teach Mowgli to be a bear, Murray's Baloo helps Mowgli to embrace himself as he is, instead of forcing him to be something he isn't. That's a message anyone can take to heart.
I say, you could be a man right here.
Kaa's role in the film undergoes a change as well between the two films. We watch him try and fail to eat Mowgli twice in the animated feature. He's hypnotic with his colorful eyes and slick voice, but he's got nothing on the 2016 version. Scarlett Johansson entrances Mowgli and the audience with her smooth, melodic voice, but she also has some information on Mowgli's backstory, something we don't get in the animated feature. Even though Kaa is only seen once in the 2016 version, she leaves a lasting impact. It's terrifying to watch Kaa the snake almost consume Mowgli, but in both versions, he is saved by a helpful hand.
Just a minute. I've never seen one before.
With all these changes in character, it's no wonder that the ending had to change along with them. The 1967 version showed Shere Khan face Mowgli after he had resolved to be alone in the jungle. Baloo then comes into the fray to help him. Then, when lightning strikes and sets fire to a nearby tree, Mowgli turns to man's greatest weapon to defeat Shere Khan. In the 2016 version, it seems that Mowgli too will use fire, or the red flower, to best his opponent. But we watch in awe as he ultimately rejects it. Instead, he relies on his man-cub ingenuity to save him at the very end. Then, once the danger presented by Shere Khan vanishes, the two Mowglis take different paths. In the 1967 version, following a young girl with a beautiful singing voice, Mowgli returns to human society. However, in the 2016 version, after embracing his human nature, Mowgli makes the choice to stay in the jungle with his animal family. With all of these distinctions to consider, we have to ask, which film is better? We took a look at the scores on Rotten Tomatoes to try to answer the question. The 1967 version of The Jungle Book received an 88% from critics. Time magazine remarked, "The result is thoroughly delightful. The reasons for its success lie in Disney's own unfettered animal spirits, his ability to be childlike without being childish." On the other hand, the 2016 version garnered a 94%. James Berardinelli, a top critic from Real Views, had this to say about the movie. The Jungle Book is well made and deserves recognition as one of the year's best family offerings thus far. It seems that live action was better received, and it's no surprise why. Favreau's vision brought a new perspective to the film, and it's a refreshing and modern look at the classic. The 2016 version is clearly not a shot-for-shot remake, much to its benefit. There are many differences to be had between these two incredible renditions of The Jungle Book. But it seems that the one with more emotional depth and character development wins the day. Both versions of The Jungle Book have their pros and cons, and they're both enjoyable movies to watch. You can't go wrong with either one.
You want to know something? We're good sparring partners.
You'd better believe it.
Now that we've covered the varying characteristics between each film, which one do you prefer? The animation or the live action? What changes stood out to you the most? Let us know down in the comments. Thanks for watching.